Welcome, everybody. This is the next evolution. Show of hands, how many of you have been here before? Show of hands, how many of you have not? Excellent. I think Caroline's going to do that in the virtual space as well in a moment. But tonight we are going to be speaking about the arts. The next evolution, give me a second. The next evolution, which is AWE Nite Chicago, this event series is now, always has been, and always will be 100% free to attend. The purpose of this event is supporting our audience by providing demonstrations, answering questions during the open Q&A, and creating networking opportunities for you guys to know. We help provide real connections to help people take their next step forward with immersive technology, virtual reality, and augmented reality, whatever that next step may be. Tonight we have put together an expert panel to discuss the arts, and we are crossing the gamut of the arts. We have visual artists, we have theater, we have audio, you name it. Each panelist will present on their background and then have a one-on-one with one of our hosts before we move into a panel conversation fielding questions from the physical space, virtual space for Bella, and we are also streaming live to AWE right now, and we can actually interact with that audience as well. I am Matt Wren, and I am your host. I am the founder of VR/AR Chicago and The Next Evolution, which we started in 2017. I'll say my passion and expertise spans a whole lot of emerging technologies, and I'll leave it at that. Please come up and say hello afterwards if you'd like to ask me any more questions about that. The next evolution is AWE Nite Chicago. I'm going to speak about AWE Nite. I'm going to go through a lot of slides really quickly right now, just so you know these slides are available after the program if you want to review anything. So here we go. Next evolution is AWE Nite Chicago. There are over 30 AWE Nites worldwide. AWE is the world's biggest immersive technology convention. Check out awe.live for upcoming events. Their next big conference is in Europe. You can use code AWENITESD23 for 20% off discount to AWE EU 2023, which is coming up in 2 weeks. If you miss their events, you can catch all of their sessions streaming on awe.live. And to learn more about online courses provided by AWE Academy, check out awe.xr.com. All right, beyond that, VR/AR Chicago and the Next Evolution's Advisory Board produces the Next Evolution. Advisory Board, raise your hands and wave for a second. Where's Ron? All right, there we go, thank you. VR/AR Chicago educates and advocates for immersive technology adoption, consults on the ways that leveraging VR and AR provides impact, and produces events that use VR and AR and streaming technology to expand the reach beyond the physical and geographic limitations. Next thing, to keep this event 100% free to attend, please consider donating. We would like to keep this programming possible. Everything that you are seeing here does come from donations. So the food, the drink, all the AV, the technology that produces the AV, all of it. With that, 1871 is normally our venue sponsor, but they had a whole lot of programming going on today and they couldn't host us. So our venue sponsor today is 2112. Rob, come and intro 2112. Or Scott, whichever of you wants to do it. Show of hands, how many of you have been here before? How many of you haven't? There we go. You got a bunch of people who've never been here before. Sure.
Did we lose your audio, Matt?
What was that?
Oh, I'm not sure. I didn't hear you. Wasn't sure if we lost your audio. There's a little echo in here from your avatar.
Sorry about that. We're going to come back. Did you hear Rob?
We did not.
Oh, well, Rob was introing 2112. That's okay. Now it's your turn. So I'm going to hand it over to our virtual host, Caroline. So if you guys actually can see on the virtual screens there, you will see our other hosts and our other audience members. That's Caroline. Caroline, you can hear me. I'm going to mute my microphone so we don't echo, but go ahead and take it away. We can hear you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Matt. It's always so fun to be here because we're really pushing the boundaries of how we actually implement and execute across multiple platforms Where we are now is the Virbela Open Campus. And to introduce that technology and community, I'd like to bring Michael to the stage, who is with the Virbela team. Michael, did you want to come up and say something?
Well, of course. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to have you here on the Virbela's Open Campus. I'm a neighbor of yours. I'm physically based in Chicago, but I really enjoy being here where I can interact with people from all over the world. This is the Open Campus. The public is welcome to join us at any time, 24/7. Anyway, thanks to everyone for being here. We really enjoy these sessions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael. So a little bit about Virbela. Remember that you can mute and unmute yourself down in the left corner. If you want to see a different screen, then you can go over to the top left and click on the screens, and it allows you to select one of the screens. And as Matt said, the far one has the actual shot of the in-person event. Hello, everybody in Chicago. The middle one will be the slides, and then the one right behind us here, that will be our cameras when we can use them. And just like Matt said, we're pushing boundaries, so we really are flying that plane and creating it as we fly. So enough about Virbela. So I did want to share a little bit about XR Women. I am part of the leadership team with XR Women. I'm really proud to represent them.
Hey, Caroline?
Yes.
Did you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, that was the next. Okay, of course. My name is Caroline Dennis, and I have a company called 2 Degrees. I help startup founders and organizations align and build go-to-market strategies, grow their product, and I work across a number of industries: XR, blockchain, precision medicine, and security. And I'm really passionate about bringing our Web3 communities. I'm passionate about giving more space to women to eradicate the less than 2% of women investments in this startup world that we're in. So I'm happy to be here, happy to be a part of the Next Evolution team. Thanks, Matt. So a little bit about XR Women, and let me just make sure that I'm following along here. Whoops. Go. So as I said, XR Women is a global community. We are inspiring, advocating, and promoting and exploring multitudes of virtual platforms and worlds. Mentor in our community, and we actually have now put on over close to 200 events in the last 2.5 years. We meet every week. And we were previously on the iLearn campus, and now we meet in Engage. But we're really excited because we're building this community and creating a network effect, not just with women, but across the immersive and XR space. So we're really happy to have XR Women as a partner for this event. Okay, so back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Caroline. Okay, so in addition to XR Women and 2112 and 1871, we also have a lot of great community partners who support these events. Those are Venity, 2 Degrees, Independent Game Developers Association of Chicago, 2112 Chicago, Envision, and VR Motion Learning. We'll say more about them at some other point. The other thing we want to bring up is that this event, one of the things, so if you guys are familiar with Proof of Attendance Protocol, this is an NFT. This QR code is for an NFT. At the end of this year, we are probably going to be giving away something, likely a VR headset, which one to be determined. But that said, the only way to actually be entered into the drawing for getting that is to collect the NFT. So you collect the NFT by pointing at this QR code. It'll take you to a webpage to register, grab the NFTs. Just, a heads up, I'm going to keep this up for about 30 more seconds. It will be available again at the end of the event. It will also be available in the virtual environment. So if you miss it right now, you'll be able to get it again later. I will say, though, you can only collect this thing, I think, today and tomorrow. It shuts off after that because we obviously don't want people to just watch the video and be able to collect it. They have to have been attending live or live-ish. Anyway, so that's the NFT. On to our program. So 2 things. So what we're going to talk about here, we're talking about the arts. And there are two things that kind of make humans effectively different from most other animals. One of them is obviously the use of tools, although that line seems to be blurring a bit lately. The other is our ability for creative expression. And from storytelling to visual arts, it's part of our cultural manifestation to create a narrative of ourselves while we are living the experiences. We often talk about immersive technology as a tool, and today we want to consider it as both the tool for the creation as well as a canvas to create on. The implications seem almost limitless for creators, but there become newer challenges of how to showcase the work, how to onboard participants, how one can purchase a work of art, particularly if it's digital, and some of the other dangerous things like how styles can be replicated using tools like AI. With new territories comes new rules of the road, and we need to be thoughtful of the ethics when creating these new spaces, tools, and works of art. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Caroline to introduce our first presenter, who is Chris Nunez. Caroline?
Yes. We're really excited to have Chris Nunez here with us today. And let me just make sure that I can share my screen. So share once again. This going. So Chris has been in AR longer than Apple or Google, and he and his creative partner, BC Bierman, have won 2 Augies. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Augies, it's a pretty prestigious award. And for their art installations around the world, and they count Google, Tesla, Samsung, Toshiba, and Qualcomm as clients. Chris gave his first talk ever about AR and blockchain at AWE in 2019. And Amuse is using blockchain to empower music fans in new ways on Amuse, soon to be rebranded as VYE. And we will hear more about that from Chris. But Chris, welcome. We're really, really happy to have you here. So come on up to the stage, and we look forward to hearing more about you.
Let me dance my way up here to your...
Sure. Dancing's great.
Hi, everybody. Hello, Chicago. We were out in Evanston last summer, had an amazing introduction to the area. One of our close family friends is the CTO of Grainger. So we got a great opportunity to see pretty much all of Chicagoland and just fell in love with it so much. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Caroline, I did figure out, I think, how to share my camera view. So should I do that now?
Yes, although we want to make sure that you're pointed to the screen right behind you and not to the
Turning it on?
middle screen.
Yeah.
So, correct.
Okay. Let's
so
try
you
it.
should see, yeah, go right ahead.
I think I got my
Fantastic.
iPhone.
That's a good sign. That's a
I
good
got my
sign.
iPhone connected to. There we go. Hey, everybody.
Okay. Hi there. So great to see you in IRL almost.
Yeah, almost. Almost. All right, so let me see. How do I find my slides here?
And if you point your screen, your mouse up to screen zoom, and you go to the middle screen, however, Tom.
There we go. All right.
You see your screens?
I do.
Your slides? Okay.
Yeah. All right. I'm just not going to stare at myself, which is totally fine. I do that every morning. Hi, everybody. Okay, so should I just next slide? Perfect. So as my intro mentioned, I've been in AR a really long time. For those of you who I have not met, I apologize. I feel like I try to meet as many people as possible. We go to AWE in Santa Clara almost every year. So if I haven't met you, please come say hello at the next one. We are lucky to count Ori Inbar as one of our advisors. We've been attending AWE since I think the second one ever, I think 2011. So we've been a member of the community for a really long time. Our current project is called Immuse, which stands for Immersive Music, although as Caroline mentioned, we are going to be rebranding to VI. So vi.wtf is going to be our new website. And our current tagline is, what the fuck is visual music? Sorry if this is being recorded. So any children in the room, it's WTF. Next slide, please. As also mentioned in our intro, we've been doing AR for a really long time. We have won 2 Augies for our art installations around the world. one in Geneva, and to be honest with you, I even forget what the first one was. But we've done projects in Moscow, Geneva, Miami, New York, literally all over the planet, using technology as an artistic medium. We are one of the managed partners internally with Niantic, and it was with them that we did, I think, our most significant last project, although it was not launched publicly because we did not get the approval of one of the band members of Led Zeppelin. Let's go to the next slide here, because I'll show you some of the unreleased footage of that. So if you could play the video for the Zeppelin footage. Nobody else has seen this other than some investors, because Robert Plant did not approve it when he went on tour with Alison Krauss. He decided he did not want.
Spend my days with a woman unkind, smoke my stuff and drink all through my life.
Can I, Tom and Matt, others here, I think, don't see those slides, did not see the video, so I'm not quite sure if it's, I thought it was just me, so just so you know what's
Okay.
going on, but you keep
Good,
going.
yeah.
Go ahead and keep going, Chris.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't the only one, but I've seen that video lots of times. So that was 4 songs from Led Zeppelin 4. We got the approval of Jimmy Page and of John Paul Jones, but Robert Plant did not approve it, so it has not gone public yet. So that was 2 years ago, and then we've also done some NFTs for musicians like Noron Pure. Next slide, please. I'm trying to talk through this very quickly, because usually I take longer than 5 minutes, but that's all I've got here. It's like maybe my camera might have died. Oh, there we go. Okay.
And I see a slide now. Do you see your slide now?
Now I do, yeah. It's
Terrific.
slide.
Others
Okay.
in the room also see it? Yes?
Okay. So
Great.
one of the things that we are focused on right now is, what does the next generation of music experiences look like? And with the Vision Pro, we do not believe that it's just going to be a UI refresh on Spotify. We actually think that music as a medium deserves to have some spatialized components to it. And that's more than just spatialized audio. It's actually visuals too. So with Amuse, what we are effectively trying to create is like a decentralized 3D MTV around the world. Here in the next video, I'm going to show you sort of a thought experiment about what does a music walking experience look like on a headset. And this is something we shot on device, so it's not on a headset, but it's on mobile. It's all real visuals that we created in Unity. Go ahead and play that video, please. There we go. There we go. But I'm not getting any.
No video. Oh, there we go. That was pretty amazing. Chris, you might be muted.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Some of that was generative art. So it's programmatically being generated on the fly. And you might imagine we also like to consider ourselves building sort of visual Spotify. Next slide, please. If you can go back one. All right, okay, if that's the next slide, let's talk about the next one, because I think this is the most important for this audience. Here, I'm trying to lay out sort of a visual depiction of how music has become more interactive over time, right? So depending upon the format and the technology that was available for the distribution of music, that has really driven what fans can even do with it in the first place. Going from vinyl, which was you could purchase it, you could hold it, you could open the bifold, you could read the inserts, you could put it on your turntable, you could flip it when you needed to get to the next songs, all the way through NFTs, and now coming into the headset era. And we really do feel like this headset era, spatialized computing, is a totally different format. It's going to be like the iPhone moment all over again, 2007, where the technology is bringing new capabilities to bear on the music industry. And we're seeing the direct results of that, for instance, with Spotify, right? So Spotify did not launch in 2007. It did not get onto the iPhone until I believe like 2014 or so. And even in the last 10 years or 9 years now, you can see what the mobile phone and streaming capabilities has done to the music industry and how dominant Spotify is as a consumption platform. We think there's going to be similar shifts with the headset. And so I would just challenge all of you, if you would like this slide, please ping me. I'm happy to chat through it. There are a lot of interactions here that I'm sure I've missed, and I'm sure there are people in the audience that are smarter than me that could actually add to this slide to say, hey, I actually think fans will be doing something else with it. But all of the terms on the left-hand column in magenta are some of these emerging ways of interacting with music. And it can be things like emote, like you would see in Fortnite, or what we call staking or staging, or geolocation. And we're really, really focused on collaboration as a next level of how fans interact with the music. So this is just a thought experiment, and I would challenge all of you to put your minds to it, to think, is music going to continue to just exist in the background of a work environment or as you're driving, or does it deserve to have a more immersive and engaging way of experiencing it when we put ourselves into a headset? So go ahead and go to the next slide.
And I think we're just about at time, so if you can wrap up, that would be great. And I know it's so much to cover, so we'll talk a little bit about after this, and I'll ask you some questions. Thanks,
Okay.
Chris.
Then let's just go ahead and play this one. We call this a visual single, which is effectively like a 3D narrative piece. And I'm not getting any audio again.
Neither here.
This is a beautiful song. There you go.
That's awesome. So is that someone in there, or is that a video someone is, or is that a person who's experiencing it?
Sorry, there was so much echo on that. I couldn't understand.
That's okay. I'll let you finish. I had a question, but I'll ask it after you're done.
If you're asking if those are real people standing there, those are 3D models in the scene. But something that I just really want to focus on is that we're providing tools in our experience where the fans now, when they're playing this experience in their space or at the beach or on Times Square, we're providing creative tools to the fans so that they can now change those visuals that you just saw and make it more expressive of the song that they think it should reflect. So if it's in a natural environment, let's say, they can change the color palette to be more natural colors. Or if it's in Times Square or in Chicago, you might make it more urban colors, grays and whites, etc. So we're empowering the fans now to change the visuals to match the song where they want to put it in the world. And that's a really powerful mechanism for trying to draw fans into this collaborative process of choosing, number one, what does this song look like at the end of the day? And then number two, if you think about like a reverse Pokemon Go model, we are empowering fans to now go out and drop these experiences around the world where they think the song deserves to live. So if you have a favorite park bench in Central Park and you think that this would be an amazing jazz song location, or if you're in Times Square and you think it's Taylor Swift and everybody should be seeing this kind of visual, you can curate the world with art and music to try to make your environment better. That's the net takeaway. And then we're using NFTs, not as collectibles, but as ways of tracking how fans interact with the music and then giving the fans certain credit for doing that. So NFTs are just a timestamping mechanism on the blockchain, and then we can timestamp when fans are interacting with songs and how, and then give fans the appropriate credit. So
That's,
I don't know
that's awesome, Chris.
if we have
Yeah.
another slide, but I can wrap up now.
Yeah, I think we're at time, but there's so much here, and I also know that our audience and us all have questions. So we have such a vibrant Q&A. So I think I'm really going to be choosing.
I may or may not be around for the Q&A. My wife bought us
Okay.
tickets for a comedy show at Red Rocks, which we're going to be heading out for.
Oh, nice.
However, I would ask if anybody is interested in seeing the next generation of what music is going to look like, please join our test flight. We're looking for additional testers. We're looking for harsh critiques. We're looking for fun experiments. Here's a QR code. I'm thrilled that you guys are offering a POAP, by the way. I will for sure collect that. NFTs are a great mechanism for engaging audiences, and that's exactly what we're using them for. So please reach out to me if you're interested. There's my Twitter, Self-Sovereign on Twitter. You have my email here, or please join our test flight.
That's awesome, Chris. Thank you so much. I have so many questions, but really for this time frame, and I will be one of those geeks to do that, because music for me is part of my everyday, how I get up in the morning, and it's how I interpret the world. So I completely am inspired by what you're doing. So I guess my question is, how do you see this, not just the work that you're doing in the music space, but how do you see immersive technologies like AR and blockchain impacting the future of art? And what inspired you to explore this intersection?
So I was previously an entertainment attorney in Hollywood representing artists, and I always saw myself as a mechanism for supporting their visions of the world. And I really just decided I wanted to be a producer of art myself, which is when I got involved in AR in 2011 and shut down my law practice at that time. So I've been running an art studio for 12 years or so before Amuse, so very focused on the arts. When it comes to blockchain and AR specifically, we look at these two colliding technologies as something that really empowers people to do new things and express themselves in new ways. And as digital tools and as digital environments become more important to our lives, we start to think of what we're doing in AR as what we call culture layer 2. So it's a way of adding almost mass personalization into your space using these technologies. And now blockchain is important in the sense that it now creates new ownership incentives around the culture and new ways of empowering fans to own the networks directly, as opposed to corporations like Google, et cetera. Yes, we are a company. Yes, we are trying to create a platform. So we are trying to get the flywheel going around our cultural product. But at the end of the day, our design is to have our platform owned and operated by a DAO, which is owned and operated by the people who use the network. And we really think that there's a lot of work to be done, and like critical work to be done around agency put in the hands of the users and ownership put in the hands of the users, so that it's not so much of a marketing effort trying to push things in your face, but it's actually giving fans and users rewards for their natural behaviors and their natural instincts around culture. So it's kind of a long-winded way of saying we really think AR and blockchain go hand in hand very nicely, and they create all kinds of new incentives that we intend to leverage in the fans' favor.
That's incredible, and I've helped to start a couple of DAOs, so I have so many things I want to connect with you about. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. Give them a big hand. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
That's super exciting. Thanks so much. And if you just want to go ahead and click on that camera icon for the screen that has your the left screen, that's great. It's already back. Awesome. Okay, so next I want to invite Juliana Lowe to come up to the stage, and I know you're probably sitting, Juliana, but come on up and you can make your way over to me. Juliana, and I'm so thrilled to have her here with us today. She's an inspiration to me. She's an immersive designer and an artist whose work allows people to experience their environments in areas of awe and wonder. She has over a decade of experience merging public art, design, theme park, game, and interactive affordancy to storytelling. She's recognized for designing VR art that unites, and since 2019, she was awarded 2 grants to design VR empathy building workshops. She has been a jury member of SIGGRAPH for two different years, and we're just excited here to have you, Juliana, so welcome.
Thanks. Thanks, Caroline, and thanks to everybody in Chicago. It's been a pleasure on your show. So,
and are you okay to see the middle screen so you can see your slides? Hover your mouse up to the screen, zoom on the middle one. Can you see that all right, Juliana?
yeah, I can't see the slides.
Okay, so you already hovered your mouse up to screen zoom. That's right, and you were not able to see them. Okay, well, I will probably, if you tell me to advance the slide, then I will make sure to tell Matt so that you can do it.
I can't see the slides, so I'm not sure what you're advancing.
Oh, got it. Okay, well, why don't you just go ahead with what you were going to present? And I know there's some videos that you wanted to share with us. So if you just want to go through with that process, and you can make sure to put those things up on the screens.
Well, Caroline, would you be able to put up there's 2 videos that I sent you. Maybe you might be, in the absence of slides, maybe you might be able to put up the first video then? That's
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Tom, are you able to advance to that first video?
It's a trailer.
Okay. Here we go. I believe it's playing right now. So the first couple of slides that you have.
Awkward to not see anything.
There we go. So that first image is playing right now. We do not have any audio for it unless if there's audio. There we go. Love it. AWE. Okay. Now we have awesome fish.
Done?
Yes, done. And you hover your mouse over the other screen to the right. They also are projecting those slides there.
Oh, the right screen?
Yes.
I see.
Oh, that's the
Cafeteria?
No, that's the camera angle. So I think it's no longer there. Okay.
It's also on the left.
So I'm not seeing anything.
All right,
so
how about this? How about you just tell us a little bit about your approach? And just the work that you've done. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess my presentation is going to be quite short then, and that's okay because I will make up with enthusiasm. I'm Juliana. I'm an immersive designer, and I'm really passionate about creating immersive projects that instill a sense of awe and wonder. And there's a reason for that. So how many people here have experienced that sense of awe and wonder? Do you notice what happens to your bodies? Get your heartbeat slows, right? You look upon whatever it is, and even if you imagine right now the last thing that you saw, that's something that made you feel awe, feel small in the world. When people actually are asked to draw themselves in the world after they've encountered something that expresses as that sense of awe, they make themselves very tiny. And that is because they start to begin seeing themselves as a part of a greater organism. That's really important because as we came out of the pandemic, there was a real need for de-stressing. As at this point, there's quite a lot of anxiety. It's difficult because we don't really know where we're going. And this is what happens when we're exiting a place that we've been in stress mode for so long. So the three words that encapsulate what I do, I make people feel joy, a relatability, and an openness to new experiences. One of the things that I do, you saw in my videos pretty well, is I capture diversity. Diversity is really important because it gives us an added dimension to what kind of references and history and ways in which we can relate to each other. And it's important to relate to each other because not only are we given the opportunity to feel compassion, but we have the added dimension, feeling empathy for someone else. And in a realm of, say, social VR, it's really essential that we not only hear a story, but we imagine and we try to relate ourselves within that particular venue. So if, for example, Caroline stubbed her toe, right? I would look at her and in a way, if I was compassionate, I'd say, oh, sorry, Caroline, you stubbed your toe. But if I was empathetic, I would think, when's the last time I did something to myself that enabled me to feel that feeling of hurt? Oh, well, I poked my eye out while doing something silly. And so I can relate to that. So compassion and empathy, especially empathy builds relatability, which is important when you're creating work, say, in the metaverse. I create works that are a combination of art installation, theaters, theme parks, and architecture. And I design them primarily because I've been lucky enough to walk into this age, which is experience economy. And I know that the storytellers and the technologists probably had their ears perked up when they heard that the experience economy. Because of the advances in hardware and softwares, we are now able to express ourselves visually and audibly, and in many different ways that we've never been able to do before. So with the advent of the Vision Pro and so many other new technologies, we're able to imagine ourselves in a different confluence. So we're able to layer on top of the world a sort of artifacts of ourselves. So one of the important things about artifacts about ourselves and knowing who we are, why it's important is because it's especially relevant, not only in the age of economy, but in a growing AI world, artificial intelligence world, where we are asked to be more critically minded of the things that we see around us. So the age of economy asks, the experience economy challenges us to figure out how we can express a view, a perspective, or a philosophy using different technologies. And we'll be hearing a lot about that because I'm also a huge fan of theater, and I know Deirdre will be talking about that in a little bit. And what else can I say? I'd like to be able to show you what the artwork might look like, but in its absence, I can let you know that I use human human-centered design to create everything that I do. And most especially, I use a sense of scale to create that sense of awe. And I gamify all my work with this of casual game designs that mom and dad, grandpa, grandma can actually understand and use. So that's come off as, it's quite interesting, and it's you can't actually find it the best way of creating artwork is with a sense of immersion. I also, it's unfortunate that I can't do the slides, but that's okay if you can imagine that. I also use a lot of spatial sound because music and sound more than anything evokes a sense of emotion and presence. And music and sound, it evokes, it brings in the sense of memory, it brings in experience, and it brings in that relatability with family members. So if I say, for example, Caroline, would you just name a name, any music, anything that any sound? Elvis. So say I say Elvis, right? So if I listen to music from Elvis, I was not around in his era, but I know other people were and have been. So if I'm listening to Elvis and it's placed, or that sort of music is placed in a say a soundstage or an architected environment, we immediately get to have this sort of place where we can connect and relate with generations from all sides, from grandpas, grandmas to from across countries, across borders. We are able to have that aspect of community and unity. So
that's
those
amazing. Yeah. So Juliana, on that note, I do want to ask you a question because I know we're running out of time here, but just so you know, others were able to see the slides because we did have those slides playing while you were talking. So that's the good news of this. But it was really helpful to have that reflection of your design approach. So there's so much woven in here, and it's a beautiful way to weave together what Chris was talking about, is that we're in a time when people are becoming part of the creative experience. Deirdre, just like Chris, just like you are, is you're inviting people to create their own experience of the art while they're doing it. So with that in mind, you know, you mentioned being drawn to global perspectives and identifying with storytellers and visionaries. How do these perspectives influence your creative process, and how do you see immersive technologies enhancing the way stories are told and shared globally? You just take I'd love to hear your perspective about that.
Well, I think we have to, look at what's coming our way. We have to look at technology, and we have to look at the affordances that they offer in order to figure out how do we create experiences that allow for accessibility, one thing. So the global perspective and the visionary or the future perspective isn't so much futuristic as it is more accessible, because I mean these sort of things are essential anyway.
Right,
I'm wondering,
right.
So I'm worried too a little bit about the advent of artificial intelligence. So if that's what you mean by futuristic, yeah, I think we all have to be invested in that. And that I use it. I use AI quite frequently, but the thing that I know is that it can never replace human imagination, human personal storytelling within their own realm, whatever they of. And it's, if you use it as a tool, it's unbelievable. But it also harkens back to the need for being critical, to have that critical thinking. So going forward, I think it's really important to be able to identify with whoever your history is, your background, and to be a little bit more cognizant of where you come from and where others come from, so that when you see something that's invested or that comes out of artificial intelligence, you have the discern ability to say, no, that's not correct.
Right. No, that's a really good point. And I think we're going to be looking at that more heavily next month in terms of AI and how it influences and will be influenced in the future. So Thank you so much, Juliana. It's beautiful to see the work that you do. And I know that the audience will have time for some more questions. But I'd love to be able to turn it back over to Matt. Thank you so much, Juliana, for coming tonight. Back to you, Matt.
All right. Thank you, Juliana. Thank you, Caroline. Just, yeah, in the audience here, by the way, they can, yeah, I know you can't see the third screen, but they can all see you. There's a camera right there. It's pointing at you. The people in the virtual space are watching the audience. So you know. But anyway, so thanks all. With that, I'm going to invite Charlie Athanas up to stage. Come on, Charlie. And Charlie, grab one of those microphones, please. So, oops, give me a second. Let me catch up. So during the day, Charlie consults on digital projects for enterprise companies with EX3 Labs. And he's also currently developing a VR project called Dark Park with award-winning author Kathy Koja. I think he has that in his hand right now. There we go. You should probably use the microphone so people can hear you. With that, though, I'm going to shut up and let Charlie go.
Okay, you can see I'm very technically adept at this. So I was asked to sort of talk about myself as an artist. So we're going to run through some slides, hopefully really quickly, about my background. It'll explain a little bit of the approach. Oh, good, I can see my slides. It'll explain some of the approach that Kathy Koja and I are taking towards this VR project. It's a little unorthodox, and you'll see why in a minute. So, first slide. So, this is going to be about my journey as an artist from a technical standpoint to where I am today. The first through line was music. So how I got involved with computers at all was I was playing music in bands and doing soundtracks for things. And I met people from the Electronic Visualization Lab at the University of Illinois in Chicago. And they were creating computer art in the 80s. And making videos. And they had no soundtracks. So my tie-in, I was asked to make soundtracks for these people. The end result of that was they eventually realized I could do graphics, and they said, you know, you should be doing this. So from there, I went from soundtracks into making my own graphics. What you're seeing here is this synthesizer is what went through my journey for many years, and currently the synthesizer is now at Martin Atkins Museum of Post-Punk and Industrial Design Museum, so I'm very proud of that. Thank you. Next slide. So the first thing I did was computer animation for Japan. It was a SIGGRAPH project, an exhibit in Japan. I was asked to design some animation for an arcade stand where you would go into the museum, you would click some arcade style buttons and build your own animations. The other thing that happened at that time period was I created a computer-generated music video from a character called Ralph the Punk. Unfortunately, SIGGRAPH also took that around the world in their art shows and through videotapes, and that sort of changed my life because suddenly I became a computer graphic artist in the 80s. Slide. My first brush with VR was with NASA Ames. This is Scott Fisher here on the right and Sally Rosenthal on the left. Sally was very involved with SIGGRAPH in the 80s, very well connected, and she offered to pose for Scott and NASA for their promotional videos for their photos for The View. So this is one of the very first VR headsets. Scott was the one who saw, the legend has it, he saw a Mattel Power Glove. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that toy. Okay, 2 of you. So he saw that and realized, hey, why don't we use this as the interface? They had no way to play with anything that they were seeing in the headset for the astronauts. And he saw this toy from Mattel and decided, what if we use the hand controls and control what we're seeing in The View with that? Next slide. From there, I became a creative director at a laser studio here in Chicago and did laser animation. And at this point, I had to learn to code in order to move the lasers around and create these animations. You know anything about me, learning to code was a horrible event. Next, yeah. Okay, so next big break in my life, I was asked to be an artist on the very first computer generated comic book called Shatter. This came out of Chicago through First Comics. It was the first of its kind. It was received very well in the computer graphic community, the comic book industry, not so much. I was also asked to start doing artwork for people like Whitewater. Whitewater was a company co-founded by Mark Ackler. Some of you in here may know him in Chicago. He's now a philanthropist and a former VC. And he had a company called Whitewater, and he had a manual. It was the second software for Windows 1.0, and he asked me to create a comic book throughout the manual. Anybody here know what a software manual is? That's two of you.
Yes, I do. I'm sure there are folks over here that do too.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, next. We're getting there. So from there, comic books, soundtracks, music, videos. At this point, I was asked to join an independent studio in Evanston, where Chris was, and create John Madden Football 2. It was a 3-person team. There was a designer, Robin Antonick, a programmer, John Prettyman, myself doing all the graphics and the animation. From there, we continued to develop simulations. A lot of people don't realize John Madden Football 2 was one of the very first game simulations like ever. So we took that, applied it to a world political simulation, and made 2 products, Shadow President, which won the CES Innovation Award, and was followed up by Cyber Judas, which actually had one of the very first 3D graphics produced in a game. That was done on a Silicon Graphics Indigo 2 Extreme in order to make that, and it was done on Alias Wavefront software, which later became Maya, for any of you familiar with that 3D software. Next. Okay, the other through line in all of this, to get to VR, is my background in theater. So throughout all of this, I was working with independent theater companies in Texas and here in Chicago, and I did a lot of things like set design, costume design, dramaturg, playwright every once in a while. And so you'll see later on in a couple of slides where these foam core miniature to scale sets come into play when I start designing for VR. Next. Then we hit 1995, another big change in my life. This was a top secret project with the biggest band in the world at the time. I can't really tell you, I can tell you later down there. Currently, I'll give you a hint, currently they just had a big week opening a show in Vegas at one of the biggest, newest venues the world has sort of ever seen, and probably know who that is. Okay, next. Okay, so I took all of that and went to Evanston and helped build a nightclub, bar, restaurant, and it all started with foam core models, which then turned into actual stages, eventually becoming a very vibrant nightclub. Recently, I did a music video, co-directed a music video with Joel Lopez, and it was for the Joy Thieves. The singer was Ayatoya. Had a lot of fun directing it, and I got to do Blender animation for the video itself, which was really fun for me learning Blender. Okay, now we're getting to the VR. So I've been lucky over these years with all those various art projects to work with authors like William Gibson, who gave us the words cyberspace. With Clive Barker, did several world premiere stage adaptations of his work. And now I'm working with Kathy Koja. First started when I got a text out of the, not a text, but a direct message out of the blue on Twitter from an author that said, hey, can you talk to me about VR AR? I'm doing a book and I need some background. And it turned out to be Kathy. I had 6 of her books behind me on the shelf when I got that message, and I was like, my God, you know, this is crazy. So that was about 3 or 4 years ago. I hooked Kathy up with several experts in VR and AR that's used for research on her book, Dark Factory, which I highly recommend you read if you're in this industry at all. It covers music, creativity, art, VR, AR, nightclubs, and it reads like a rocket. You wrote a very, very fast book. Okay, next. Okay, so now we're at Dark Park. This is the project I'm working on. Kathy and I are developing a VR app to let people sort of enter the world of Dark Factory and Dark Park. It's published by Meerkat Press. we're still in the design stages. I don't know anything about programming VR. This is very similar to me going to a laser company and saying you have to code. There's so much I have to learn to get this done, but we're plowing ahead, designing it, assuming we're going to get it done. So next slide. Well, which is, I don't know if you see the through line, but that's the way I've worked the whole time. So what we've done is we've used clay, foam core, blender. That's a foam core set, and we're photographing and lighting these little foam core scale models so we can figure out our 3D world in real time. We started with sketches, tons of ideas. Kathy's brilliant. She has a creative mind that's just crazy, which makes her an award-winning author. So it's been really fun to work with her. Next slide. So as you can see, we had a launch for Dark Factory in Detroit in an actual setting. And we've decided to reproduce this in VR. So I built a 2-scale set of what was happening, and we're going to try and capture the vibe of that Detroit book launch. We've expanded the club from that outside exterior book launch. We're now starting to go into the interior. This will be an ocean park inside here, a forest in here. This will eventually lead up to a giant dance floor and multiple floors with rooms that have meditation rooms, film centers, graffiti rooms, a variety of other interactivity. So you get up to the roof and then it gets psychedelic at that point. So the other thing, each of the assets we're building, once again, small time using old school techniques in order to visualize and understand what we're going to build before we actually get into computers. And we're almost done. It's a big project. We're working on color schemes and everything. It's got a lot of rooms, a lot of environments. We have sort of bitten off more than we can chew, but that's the way we like it. And we had a book launch party for the actual book in Detroit about 2 weeks ago. I built a video invite for this special set, again using Blender, which was a lot of fun. And next. And so that's what I'm doing. So all of that, I'm going to put into this VR application with Kathy, and hopefully you will be seeing it, I would say soon, but it's not going to be soon. It's going to be in a little while. So thank you.
You don't get to go anywhere. You don't get to go anywhere yet.
Okay.
You get a question for me first. Just because of time, though, one question for me, and then we'll get to the Q&A. So the one thing I want to ask you, because you did talk a lot about your art, and frankly, I'm going to kind of skip all of the questions about effectively the artistic stuff, because I think we're going to get back to that in the Q&A. My question is, how does your extensive background in the various creative fields inform your approach to the enterprise work and the commercial work that you're doing with companies like EX3?
Oh, okay, good question. So my day job requires me to work with very large companies, mega corporations, and try to solve some of their problems, innovation problems. I'm sort of the oddball at the company. I work with these teams. I'm the guy that asks the questions that corporate people don't ask and say, why don't we have a spaceship here? And why is this application, why does the phone turn to jelly when we want it to? Great thing about it is it leads to surprising innovation. When people say, well, we're not going to turn the phone to jelly, but what if we do this instead? So my role there is to ask questions that no one else is asking.
All right, I'll let you go with that one. That was a good answer. And we'll bring you back up for Q&A to ask you two about a lot more questions. Sorry, I had to throw that one in there. All right, Caroline, why don't you take it away with Deidre?
Sure. Well, I'm super thrilled to have Deirdre here with us. She has a long, prolific career, and she's just continues to be on fire in so many ways. She is a Los Angeles producer, director, performer. She's a co-founder of the Ferryman Collective, creating award-winning theater and virtual reality. She's listed in the top 100 original voices in XR, honored with the 2023 Innovation Award for XR Women, and included in the top 100 Global Women of the Future in Emerging Tech. She was recently accepted into the Producers Guild of America. So really excited to have you here, Deirdre. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Are you muted?
Of course, eternally muted. I was just saying Chicago. It's nice to be here. I've been familiar with what VR/AR Chicago has been doing, and you guys have been on the forefront of bringing people content and interesting information and educational experiences for a while. So bravo to you all. I'm going to just do a brief overview of who I am, how the heck I got here, and what it is that I do. So my name is Deirdre. Hello. Yes, I did all of these crazy things, and it's kind of been a bit like a quick trip from nothing to 190 degrees, like a Porsche. It's like a Porsche. It hasn't been all that long that I have been in VR. Next slide. I've been a performer since I was a kid, so it's like something that I've done forever. And when I got into Los Angeles in 1998, everybody says, make your own content, because that is what you need to do, is make your own content. And I'm like, okay. So me and my husband started making things. We made short films, we made webisodes, we made a documentary, you know, we did all of these things, but nothing really quite hit. Next slide. In 2016, I started doing immersive theater, which is a little different from proscenium. Audiences interacting with each other and with the actors. They're usually in a space that is not traditional. For example, The Willows is one of the most popular immersive theater experiences in Los Angeles, sort of like the Sleep No More of LA. And I've been doing that for many years. It's on its fifth remount, but you'll see that in the house. It's set in this mansion right next to the American Horror Story house. Another one set in a church, another one in a bar. So they're, you know, immersive areas that aren't theater. You're not watching actors on a stage talking at each other or doing soliloquies or monologues. You're actually talking to the actors. And so I've been doing immersive theater since 2016. Next slide. So I kind of like stumbled into this crazy world where I saw on Facebook some of my friends in a picture, and Noah Nelson, who runs everything immersive, typed, if you don't know what Tender Claws is doing, you should check it out. So I did. I was like, what is this thing? What is this thing that all my friends are doing? And I emailed them randomly and said, hey, do you need more performers? And they said, you know what, we do. We have the holidays coming up. This was 2019. And I was cast in the Under Presents. Then 2020 came, pandemic shut all the theaters down except for the Under Presents, because now this was theater in VR, and I was a performer in it. They wanted to help their actors, and they created a new experience called The Tempest. So this was my first foray into theater in VR as a performer. Next slide. So then we started making our own, because why not? It started out with Brian Tull going, I hate that Halloween's been canceled. I don't want to stay home. I want to make a Halloween in VR. And so that's how it started. The Ferryman Collective grew out of, you know, his idea to make a Halloween show that was proof of concept, 20 minutes long, worked really well. We went on and did Krampusnacht, and we thought, well, let's submit this for an innovation award. And oh my God, we were finalists. Like, okay, we're on the right track. Then we wanted to take a little bit more time and create a more longer form show that was more intimate, because I had seen intimacy work in VR, but nobody was really exploring that. So I asked a friend of mine who had seen her in real life immersive theater show called Welcome to Respite, and asked her if she'd be interested in taking that into VR. She says, ain't doing nothing. I'm sitting at home. So she bought a headset and off we go. We created Welcome to Respite, which has been around the world. And it also has won lots of awards, and including being taken to Korea and a Korean version being created. Next slide. So then I was like, well, what's we going to do next? And so I looked around, and one of our team members had this beautiful world that they built in the pandemic. So I wrote a story around that, showed it to Screaming Color, and he said, I love it. So we worked on it to make sure it fit his narrative, and then we launched it, and it went around the world. It's won a bunch of awards. It is currently in Taiwan because it won the Grand Jury Prize at the Kaohsiung Film Festival. So it's being brought back in a Mandarin version, and we're gearing up to do shows with not only a Mandarin but an English cast for Kaohsiung starting on October 6th. And then we were also asked to take a show that was originated in Korea and turn it into an English language version, and we took that to South by Southwest. So that's kind of how all this happened. Let me give you a bit of an overview of what it is that we do. If you could go to the next slide and play a video, we will give you sort of an overview of what this looks like in VR.
No sound quite yet, but I'll bet come.
A live, scripted, immersive, and interactive play that takes place entirely in virtual reality.
In Gumball Dreams, our 3 audience members are brought to the climax of a cosmic journey, where they find themselves reborn as their chosen Shalmari, the same race as our primary character, Onyx. Onyx has reached the end of their existence in this universe and needs your help to transcend to the next plane of reality.
Part of our show is a one-on-one encounter with only one audience member, and they get to have a personal conversation with Onyx. The other 2 audience members are given a mission to complete a puzzle and bring back a power source to Onyx, allowing for a separate user experience.
Then Onyx takes them on a spectacular journey of discovery before experiencing their own transition into the beyond, which is breathtaking.
Things that they see are quite simply out of this world. It's a liminal space in between the psychedelic, in between the real and the unreal, the fantastic and the mundane, the simple little things in life that can make us feel happy, can make us feel sad, alongside the cosmic, the impossible, the outrageous, and the simply incomprehensible. And this is Gumball Dreams.
Wow. Incredible, Deirdre.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if that's a wrap for you, I know that there'll be questions from the audience, but I think for me, if I were to ask you one question, and you probably know this might be coming from both of us being involved and care deeply about XR women and the work we're doing. So being included in the global top 100 women of the future in emerging tech, it's a big deal. What message does this send about the role of women in shaping the future of technology and art? And I know that Juliana will appreciate this.
Truly, and I've enjoyed Juliana's worlds very much, and so happy to be on the stage with her. It is an honor, and I'm just so grateful for all of the things that have happened in this last 4 years, where we've sort of like traveled very far. But I do think that we need, as women, to be more visible and seen, and to take our work and ask people to see it and say it and shout it from the mountaintops, so the people hear that we're present and we're doing things. I think that boys, gentlemen, usually have a much better time at doing that. And I think I would encourage women to reach out to magazines and write blogs and, put their work out there, submit themselves for things, and submit themselves and take chances to do something that they wouldn't normally do. And once they've done it a couple of times, it gets easier.
That's really good advice, I know. And I think all of us who have experienced that as women can agree that things don't always fall in laps, right? They don't always just come to you. You have to make them happen. And I feel so inspired by you and Juliana and all of the folks at XR Women. And at VRAR Chicago, we celebrate that. And I'm proud to be representing this community. Thank you so much, Deirdre. Thank you for coming. And I'm going to now turn it over to Matt.
Thank you, Julianne. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Deidre. Up next, we're going to invite, I think I'm relatively sure I saw him walk into the stage. JC Rivera, you here? Where is he at? He's coming. This one's going to be a little bit different. JC is promised us he doesn't want to talk to slides. So we're just going to interview him. It's pretty much how it's going to work. And we're going to show some of his artwork behind him. You get to come on the stage. Unfortunately, I have to stand here because I got to show some of your work. I'm going to start by showing that video. Is that okay? All right, so let me start there, and then we'll roll into some questions, and give me a few moments. And again, I apologize about the audio. Whoa, yeah, there we go. Apologize about the audio issues with the video. I do have to kind of turn the audio on after I run the video. So give me a few seconds here. And I'm not seeing audio come through on this one, so it's going to be interesting. Well, apparently when it downloaded the video, it did not download the audio. But we're seeing some video of you up there. Actually, you can see it down there. So I believe this was from a Boost Mobile commercial and a Boost Mobile program that you're doing. Really kind of wish we could have the audio with that. It was actually really cool. I'll try and get that from YouTube a little bit later and run the video possibly when we upload this. But with that, let's get into some of your artwork and let me ask a couple of questions. So first, we're obviously here to talk a lot about technology and immersive technology in particular. But before we get started, I want to know a little bit more about the bear. We see it everywhere, and so I guess the question is, how did this character come to be, and why do you think it's been so successful?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. So the Bear Champ started, this character I created out of like just designing. I designed a bunch of characters. Done it for different companies and different people. I decided to do my own and brand my own character, and it's based on like roll with the punches, kind of go through life and never give up, keep going and doing what you want to do, what inspires you. But that's pretty much what the bear came about. I came to this country, no English, like when I was 21, nothing. I didn't have anything. So kind of like, that's my journey through life.
Excellent. So I just realized I didn't actually read your introduction as you were coming up, which is what I was supposed to do. So I'm going to read it now.
No, that's cool.
And then I'll get to the next question. Yeah. So really quickly, so JC Rivera is a contemporary artist who spent the last decade creating one of the most uplifting and iconic street art brands in the world. You likely know him as his most popular character, the Bear Champ, who I just asked a question about, which brings hope and innovation and inspiration to communities across the globe as together we roll with the punches. So now that said, asked you about the bear, where it came from, and you work full-time as an artist. The art scene, essentially as a viable income source, can be quite scrappy, like a boxing match. So at what point did you sort of first realize that your artwork could be a viable career?
Well, I was, painting, doing graffiti, like painting on the street just for fun with friends, and started painting with a graffiti crew, and I put the bear between their letters and stuff like that. And one day, I painted a few, posted on Instagram, and a credit card company messaged me and said like, "Hey, would you like to do this campaign with us?" And I was working at a warehouse at that time, and it was pretty good money. And after that, I kind of like, a couple more came in right after, and it kind of pushed me to be like, well, I can probably do this full time instead of just, do it on the side. And I kept pushing it and kept like, just looking for more and putting more out there, and kind of like, I started traveling. I did an exhibition in Barcelona. I went to London for it, and just bringing ideas. I made it like, when I was started pushing my art digitally, I found a computer, like a iBook G4 at a pawn shop in Orlando where I used to live, and kind of that's how I started everything. I had Illustrator and Photoshop, and just everything that I did as a sketch, I'm like, I can do this digitally with no training. I have no training in anything. I just kind of figured out my own.
So you've kind of mentioned this a few times now. You came to Chicago when you were 21, but what are some of the places you've lived throughout your life? How did you end up here?
I'm from Puerto Rico. I was in Puerto Rico until I was 21. moved to Orlando through Disney, the college program. Lived there for 7 years, and then I was when I wanted to be an artist full time, it was either New York, LA, or Chicago. So I chose Chicago to be the city because it's as kind of big as LA and New York, like, but smaller that I can stand out, right? But like, you know, and big enough that everybody would notice. So.
Excellent. So I'm showing a lot of pictures behind you of a lot of your murals. So really quickly, as a muralist, most people wouldn't necessarily make the connection to technology. And you just talked a little bit about how you've been using technology along your journey. But have you, I guess, aside from, I guess, what's the progression? Does everything, you know, Charlie mentioned how he does a lot of such in sketches first, and then he transitions into the technology. Do you use the technology as the end point or a starting point or somewhere in the middle? What's the progression for you?
It's actually kind of like the middle or the end. I start with a sketch and I take a picture with my phone. I used to do scanners, but I take a photo with my phone. And then I, you know, go through Photoshop and I kind of make it a clean illustration, and that's what I go. But in even bringing it to a 3D form, the bear, I hired somebody to do it for me, and I did like NFTs with it, and also right now I'm working with a studio in LA pretty much, and then putting like a sizzle and all that together for be an animated series of the bear. So no.
Well, so you're leading great into the next question here, which is, so a lot of us saw the recent study that the vast majority of NFTs are now worthless.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the evolving technologies of today, how do you stay relevant, and sort of what's been the most challenging to navigate so far?
Challenging to navigate is, well, I'm pretty, I started like sketching and everything that I did, and still I do paintings, a lot of murals. Maybe keep up with technology. Like I said, I still use the laptop with the tablet, you know, myself. Like, it's like, you know, I mean, I don't do the syntax, but I figured out a way, how to, like, you know, still make it that I'm catching up, I guess. I like the thing about the bear. I want it to be that people see it, right? No, it's not only just on paper, like figures, you know, like, well, if I want to have a figure, now it's like I have to do a 3D printed first and all that. So it's like, you know, I mean, I still have to use technology for it. So
I'm going to hit you more on that in a second. Just one, what I wanted to sort of peg you on a little bit, though, is what are your thoughts on NFTs and blockchain when it comes to artwork and ownership, and how the technology plays into it?
I think I was really into it. I think it was like a really cool thing. And what I would like to do, and I'm really interested, I would like to do is mine, which I created a whole set of characters for it, and use it as a token. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if whoever buys one or whatever, I figured out, I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do it. But I would like to be as like, they'll be like the members. I have like the membership, so they can have paintings. I'll do like a raffle, or I do like, you know, if you buy certain paintings or whatever, you get something else, or, you know what I mean? Like, the people that consistently support me, that'll be like the, you know, like kind of the token for it too. And I also, like, I created this like the bear, like a variation of the bear to be like a cannabis NFT kind of membership too. It hasn't been out yet, and normally we're still working on it, but yeah, it's also one thing that we looked in.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to you on the 3D, and then we'll get to the actual, like, the audience Q&A. But you mentioned 3D and you mentioned animation. So are there plans, are there thoughts to bring the bear to life in video or in 3D in like a virtual environment? So, you know, animations, televisions, VR experiences. What are there plans here? Is this moving forward?
Yeah, I don't have anything yet like that. Like animation that we're working on is like the old school animation, like the 2D, like, you know, more, but it's animated. But I would love to do more like that. Definitely, I would love to do more like that. Like I have a few like NFTs that, you know, it's animated and it's like really cool. But yeah, I haven't met the right person yet, I guess.
Excellent. So let me see if I have one more question to ask you, or if we should just get to the audience Q&A. Well, I guess one last question, because we're Chicago. So Chicago's the city of broad shoulders, which relates to the rolling with the punches. Fair champ. So do you think this will always be home, or a second home potentially?
Definitely. Chicago is like where I pretty much became myself. You know, I grew up in Puerto Rico, 21, but my adult life, I was 28 when I moved here. So everything from becoming myself as a person, as an artist, that's everything. It's Chicago. Like this is who I became myself. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm actually going to ask you to stay because at this point we're going to get to the audience questions and answers. So the way this works, let me get up to the slide here. Charlie, you got to come back up here too. I believe there's one more microphone. Actually, I'm going to let that microphone be used by Ben. Is Ben around? All right, so I'm going to ask you guys to share a microphone, if you don't mind. That microphone will be used to go to the audience. Oops, I skipped a slide. There we go. All right. So how this works, just so you guys are aware, again, a lot of you haven't been here before. We have 3 audiences. We have a live audience here in my physical space. We have the Verbella audience that has the ability to answer questions, and Tom is also monitoring the live stream, and there are people in the audience of the live stream who can ask questions. So the way this works is raise your hand. When you raise your hand, myself, I'll be coordinating with Caroline to call on who's going to ask a question. You're going to get a second to either in the room, you'll have the microphone, in Verbella, you will open your microphone, ask your question, then please remute yourself so that the audience can answer, or so the panelists can answer a question. You can ask a question of any of the panel members or all of the panel members. It's entirely up to you. And again, if I see Tom's hand waving like this, that means we have a question in all.live, which means that he'll have to get there too. We will try to do questions in the order they were asked, in the order that we see hands go up, and we will also try to keep questions to the people who are at, essentially let everybody get a shot to ask a question before we go back to repeats. So with that said, let's see who's going to be first. All right, we got a couple right up here in the front row. And Caroline, if you, I'm going to try and watch Rebella here. If I see Caroline, I can really only see your hand. So if your hand goes up, I know you've got a question in the room. But in the audience here?
Yes, a question for Charlie, but also for anyone else who does creation in technology. When you particularly are thinking of making something new and different, do you tend to think about it outside of the delivery medium like VR or 3D interactions or something, and then bring it in? Or you tend to like go into the medium and feel it out a bit and say, you know what, I'd like this, or I'd like that, or I have an idea for that?
Great question. My artwork is all based on sketching and illustration. That's the through line. And then what has happened in my career is people have come up and said, do you want to try and make a computer game? Do you have a moment to do this comic book? Do you want to be involved with this theater? And then I just adapt from there. I enjoy the challenge of new stuff, new software, new techniques, new experiences. So it's the latter. It's jumping in head first into something I don't know to see what happens.
For me, it's more both actually, because when Instagram came around, I took their logo and I made a character based out of their logo and actually sent it to them. And the company was like, what, like 30 people and stuff? And they're like, well, we love it, and then run with it. They're almost like they want us to go in production, and then Facebook bought the company and kind of, everything just kind of disappeared. But I also have, that was my idea, like, oh, I like this, this is cool, I'm inspired, I'll do it. And then there's some things that, like people reach out to me, like, even like the Boost Mobile commercial, that was like, hey, we have this idea of this, and then we work together for it.
Anyone in the virtual space want to
ask our virtuals? How about Deirdre? What's your take on that?
Oh, Well, we kind of look for the heart in our shows, and so that's kind of how we're driven to create content, or at least that's how I am driven to create content. So that's sort of where I start, and then also like, does it belong here? Is this the place for it? Because maybe it's not, you know, or if there's a different tech that would be better suited for the thing that we want to do next, or the storytelling. So that's sort of how we go about that.
Right. And how about you, Juliana? How do you approach the sort of journey of what you're focusing on next?
I think go along with Deirdre's, and I'm supporting that as well too. It really has to have some sort of meaning for me and some sort of connectiveness. But I mean, if it's fun, if somebody gives me that kind of looks challenging, might say, I might challenge what they really need and really want. And usually, a lot of people I notice don't really know what they want. So we kind of come back with. It's really funny. We usually start with something, then I create something funny, and then it makes them laugh. And as soon as they are able to invest their personal opinion or values into whatever the project is, that's when the magic starts to begin. And usually at the end, the actual project is a lot different actually from what was previously proposed.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, do you have any questions in the virtual space? Kind of watching Tom. Okay, we got a couple more here. Yep, front row towards the end.
All right. It's inspiring to be in the room in virtual rooms with all these, unique artists that have a distinct, recognizable style. And you go to museums and see people, you can see like, for example, Picasso. Most of his art wasn't the style that you think of when you know Picasso. So my question is, like, how did you discover and define and refine your unique, recognizable thumbprint of a style? And do you have multiple of them and you choose one that works better, or is it more like this is the only style that really flows out?
Really? You're next. I like accidents. I let the artwork take me where it's going to go. That sounds really highfalutin, but it's probably because I'm not very good. And so when I get an accident, and rather than fighting with it, I go with it. So my work looks very different every time I do it. The core of what it is I look for a feeling and a vibe that somebody wants from me or I want from a piece, and then whatever it takes to get there, gum, chewing wire, throwing it out in the street, getting it run over by a car, whatever it takes, I do it. So in answer to your question, I don't really have a style, which is a plus and a minus in the art world. So.
To myself, I don't have a style, but I created a character, and the character like satisfying to me as an artist, and I can kind of like tell my story, my message, what inspires me, and what inspires other people. So I kind of use it, but I still within the character I do multiple things. I make it abstract. Paintings, like a lot, merchandise, everything. So I feel, but the character, everybody says like, oh, you always do the bear. I'm like, yes, I always do the bear now. But if you go to my studio, I have all the things that I paint sometimes that nobody has seen, right? Because it's kind of part of the creative process. But yeah, like that's, I guess, yeah, I have a style. Right? I push something, and I kind of brand something. But yeah, it's always fun to like make something different. So
Follow up on that. So are you worried that's going to limit you at any point? Or are you ready to just abandon it and move on when you need to? Bear.
Yeah, the bear. Well, yeah, it limits at some point. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, like that's what I kind of paint. I go to my studio and paint something that is not the bear, like for myself, kind of. But it's when I wasn't making any money, right, and then not being like something that I did for a living, was like, man, I wish I can sell some art. And then when it happens, right, then you're like, well, I'm selling art. I'm like, this is what I do for a living. I'm an artist, and I'm actually, inspiring people. One time I was in LA at a toy convention, and then this guy walks by me, and he was wearing one of the shirts. I was like, I made that. I was like really excited. I'm like, I made that, man. That's my character. And then he's like, oh, thank you. And actually, he's like, hey, this shirt I wear every time I have chemo. I'm like, cancer, and every time I wear it, because it's like, well, your message is roll with the punches. That, and this is like years ago, and and that I still like think about that, because it's something in it. I mean, people tell me all the time, like, oh, well, you always paint the super bear. Sometimes people say that to me, like, but it's like, well, yeah, all you see is the bear, right, that I painted, and you think I'm like, oh, it's the same bear over and over again. But it's a message. It's like everything, and it's like if a message about me, about other people, it's what it means to somebody. So it's like, yes, so it's like, sometimes it's like, well, I know how to do something else, but I don't, so before it was like, well, I can try to prove myself to other people that I can paint something else, but I had nothing to prove, Yeah.
Pretty sure I saw a question in the virtual space go up.
Karen, you wanted to ask a question. Go ahead.
Yes. My question is about your technical expertise, and that doesn't necessarily mean technology in the way we usually think about it, but your mastery of your tools as an artist, and sort of how important that is to you, and or also thinking about the punk rock approach, the DIY approach, and they say that punk rockers eventually learn how to play their instruments, so they're no longer punk rockers. But I wanted to ask about your relationship to the technical aspects of what you do.
And you're speaking to R.C. Rivera or everyone here on the panel?
Oh, everyone on the panel.
Everyone, great, okay. Juliana, did you want to speak about the technical tools and how you interpret those, their role?
Okay, thanks, Karen. I can answer this. So do a lot of Google. Very, very exhausting thing to do, because you're basically having to use your right brain and your left brain both at the same time, because you're painting in 3D with these strips that are really difficult to control, and then you're actually sculpting it at the same time. So, and you're trying not to get dizzy. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, but it's taken some time, but for some reason I was really able to get used to it quite fast, and then that's when I started running off. But there's always that, you start, and then you go through this period of like, oh my God, everything just looks ugly. And eventually, if you actually stay the course, you'll come up with something that kind of looks okay.
That's awesome. What about you, Deidre?
I'm not personally a world builder or an animator or an avatar builder. We have other people on the team that specialize that and do that. But that's kind of how it all comes about, though. There does need to be, a group of people who can help with all of the skills and their strengths and weaknesses. And if you're lucky enough to work with a team, then we use Blender, Unity. These are free tools if your company doesn't make, over a certain amount of money, and there's lots of tutorials available. But mostly for me and how I contribute is in the way of like trying to understand what is possible and what is not possible. So I don't ask for the moon and the stars, and then they go, yeah, that's not happening. But try to creatively think of solutions within the boundaries that we need to work within.
Yeah, I think it really does stretch your creative brain, especially when you're working with the technical and the creative, because you've got to work in harmony to embody that. Do you want to go into our in-person Yeah, it's JC and yeah.
Yeah, I want to make JC answer this one before Charlie does, because Charlie talks all day long about how he jumps into new tools. But I'll let JC answer first.
Okay. For me, the technical part of it, especially painting murals. Painting murals that used to take me long, now I can paint like a 3-story mural in like 3 days, right? Because I figured out how to do it. But it's pretty good and it's good, but it's the same thing as a curse, because then when a company's hiring me to paint a mural, they're like, well, you can paint it in 3 days. Why would we paying you this much? You know, so it's like yeah, that's when the technical is like pretty good, and it's like, you know, man, I can save a lot of time, but yeah, it has this downside.
Days, dude, that's crazy. That's crazy. I don't know if anybody realizes how hard it is to do a mural, but it's really hard. So I can tell you a quick story about the brute force technology thing. I wanted to be in a band. People said singers are a dime a dozen. You have to learn how to play an instrument. So I went to a music store. I looked around. I said tambourine, nah. Harmonica, nah. Triangle. Nah. Hey, there's this. It's 1979. There's this synthesizer. I could just like press a key and go wee 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 wee, and I'm in. So I bought it. I taped A, B, C, D, E, F, G across the keys. Went to an audition a week later. They would say it's in the key of D. There were 3 of those. I was off and running. So that's my approach to technology. It's like, if I need to do something, I'll just make it happen. So.
All right, Tom. Ron, you got something from AWE Live behind it? There we go.
Can you hear me? Going through? From Tanvi, from AWE.live, asks, what are some things you wish you knew earlier in your career?
Good question.
Who wants to go first?
Yana, Deirdre.
Okay. All right, JC, grab the microphone. Oh, wait, okay, go ahead, Deirdre.
I'm not sure. I wasn't sure if we were doing 2 or the other, but there's so many things I could say about this topic. 1, lose perfection. I love what we were talking about, like the happy accidents and stuff. Like the perfection is the death of like creativity. So lose that. I wish I'd known that a long time ago. I think women are actually more affected with this than men, but perhaps I'm wrong. That's just a sense. And then also visibility is key. Like as we were talking about earlier about women and getting out there and raising their visibility in any way possible, so that people who are looking for what you do can find you. So that means, you know, writing to a publication that you really admire and saying, hey, can I do a guest post on your thing? Can I networking and going to different places so people know you and meet you, getting out there and writing press releases on yourself and then sticking them on a press release website. Anything you can do to raise your visibility, submit yourself for awards, submit yourself for anything that you find, look for things, ask people about that, and just try to get your visibility up so people can find you.
All right, so just so you guys are aware, in the virtual space, we're hearing a whole lot of music practice in the studios that are on the other side of this wall. So that's what that noise is. If you guys are hearing that, there's like a whole bunch of sound studios. I can't remember how many, but do you guys want to go answer the question? What do you wish you knew earlier?
Test, okay. When I first started, I thought being an artist was about a solo adventure. You were your own person. You were locked in a room by yourself, and you made things that people would just be in awe over. And I soon learned that's just not the case. And my mantra became do cool things with cool people. Art for me is about collaboration. It's about learning from others. It's finding inspiration from others, and working with people underneath them, contributing to other people's artwork. So that was something I wish I had known much earlier, but that's been the theme of my work for a long time.
For me, it's like I knew like to trust myself and kind of don't listen to anybody, because I started my career in my 30s, like kind of pursuing it full time. And yeah, well, I'm 40.
Come on.
No, but I mean, I could have started a lot younger, just because my parents were like, you will not make a living, as an artist, and that kind of kept me off, like not, and everybody, so just that, like kind of like just push myself like sooner, I guess.
Juliana, you want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I would. Gosh, there was like, one, don't worry if you mess up. Okay, I was just, um, and most important thing, especially as we move toward this nice, I previously alluded to it, is the experience economy. It's a place where people are co-creating, and one of the things that I wish that I had learned a lot earlier was, one, business skills. So like, nobody teaches you that. Like, nobody teaches you how to be the business part of an artist. And the second thing is legal, right? So business and legal. You gotta go out, make friends, and gotta find people who will help you with that one, because you need it. And then secondly, I think I'm kind of actually pretty relentless. If it took me like 3 years to actually afford a headset. Like, I don't come from a privileged background or anything, so and I had to jump through many loops or hoops because people in a class, or I don't know, a certain type of people didn't really want me to actually take in VR, and so they would say everything that they could say to discourage me from doing it. And so I figured out a long time ago that especially if you come from a diverse background, that it's like it's harder to even get where you want to go, but there are many ways that you can, just volunteering and doing anything that you need to do to get yourself in that place. And don't listen to anyone. If somebody says you're never going to do this, and someone told me you're never going to do well in VR, you're just not meant for it. I listened to that and I thought, what? And I knew in my heart that no, I can do something. And so maybe use what other people say that could have hurt you and turn it into something that will push you forward. My life. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Quickly.
So I love the fact that Juliana used the word relentless. I think that's the key theme for all of us. It's just gone.
All right, I believe we have one last question from awe.live.
Yeah. Okay, awkward spot. From Kathy Koja. She asks, whose art speaks to you, work?
I heard part of that question. Whose art speaks to you?
Yeah, who inspires you?
Okay.
You're all dying to go first, I can tell. I'm going to just call you out. Juliana, you're first. Go.
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear the question. Would you?
Whose art inspires you?
Yeah, you know what? Funny thing is, like, I mean, I'm an art history major, so I know about those isms. And so the isms have helped me to understand how to express myself in different ways. But kind of art that inspires me are nameless art. It's like people who come up from the grassroots, who are talking about themselves, who are expressing themselves in paper and pen and feathers and whatever it is, because I believe that is the purest form of art. It's not the purest per se in a whole perspective, but that's what inspires me. Thank you.
Deirdre, you're next.
I like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Just a big fan of them and their music. Also super inspired by all the contemporaries that I see around town, and all of the people who are doing immersive theater. That is basically where I've culled a lot of my skills from JFI to Speakeasy Society. That's usually where I pull my experiences from, having gone through their shows and then doing it myself and in a way that like would speak to me, and then trying to bring that to others. But yeah, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, woo woo.
Love it, love it.
All right, on this side of things, JC's holding the microphone, so he's next.
There's so many, but like I feel Obey, Shipper Ferry was like one of them. In the street, it's a street artist. It was, somebody that I saw putting stickers up on the internet, well, way before I was even thinking about it. But that, yeah.
This is pretty easy. Mine is Frank Rosetta for graphics, David Bowie for music, and William Gibson for books. And of course, the person who asked the question, Kathy Koja.
I won't say anything there. Okay, so we're going to get to closing remarks here. Here's how this is going to work before we get into it. Each of the panelists, start thinking now. You're going to have about basically 20 seconds to sort of give your final thought, whatever you want your final thought to be. Let me transition the slide so everybody can see who's who. So you have 20 seconds to give about a closing statement. Caroline will then give her closing remarks. I will give my real quick closing remarks. We'll go through some housekeeping stuff, and then we'll end the show there. Obviously, we still have some drinks. We have some experiences. One thing I really want to do, if JC's open to it, is throw you in a VR headset and let you do some painting. If you're into it, you don't have to. No pressure. We have a couple different tries. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. Anyway, so that said, I'm basically stalling, giving them some time to think about what their 20 seconds of closing remarks is going to be, because usually, I mean, let's face it, they don't know this is coming. I literally just put them on the spot. I'm going to throw one other question to you while we do this that I want you to just think about, though, because this was something someone just recently, about a year ago, inspired me to do. They told me there's an author that I started reading that I really, really liked. And someone's like, did you ever email him and just tell him you like his stuff? No, never did that. So didn't think about it, never done it before. Emailed the guy, got a response, was really cool. So now I'm making it a point of any time I come across a musician, an author, an artist, whatever, if I just like their stuff, I just shoot them an email saying, hey, I really like your stuff. That's it. I'll add context if needed to, but I, kind of think about that again from the artist perspective. What does that mean when somebody that you've probably never met just randomly says, you mentioned the story of the person who was wearing a shirt when they had chemo. Like, what does that mean to you guys? But with that, 20 seconds. Charlie's got the microphone. Go, Charlie.
To sum up what you've heard here with the artists on this panel, they've all been great. I respect all of them tremendously, by the way. They're all doing great work. I think the theme here is just do it. If you're interested in VR, if you're interested in AR, find a way to do it. Doesn't matter if you're sketching on paper, putting your ideas down in foam core, painting on walls. It doesn't matter what you're doing, just start. The tech will come. There are YouTube tutorials for everything. So you can do any of it.
Deirdre?
Sure, I can go 20 seconds. So, there's this study that I had heard about from Italian physicist Alessandro Pluchino and Andrea Raspisarda and this economist Alessio Biondo. And they basically did a study that said that luck actually has a huge role to play in our success. And it's not that talent doesn't, but talent will, it will help you, capitalize on the success, but to have the opportunities open up to you, to have the luck open up to you is when you rise. And there is actually a way to increase your luck by just thinking you're lucky and looking for more opportunities around you and the doors that are open to you instead of pounding on the doors that are closed to you. So if by chance you are doing something and it's not working out, just go, meh, I wasn't lucky on this, and I'm going to keep trying, and then the luck will come, or just keep looking for luck, and then you will find it. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Juliana, what are your thoughts, final thoughts?
Oh, I feel lucky. Okay. And I had it on the slide. I put this on the slide because it was very meaningful to me. And it was said, quoted by Chadwick Boseman, played Black Panther, and he passed away from cancer. And he said, now, more than ever, the illusions of division threaten our very existence. We all know the truth. More connects us than separates us. Very poignant, especially in social VR, especially if you meet people in places like VR chat or any of the metaverses, that you'll learn within a few moments that you might probably have at least 3 things in common than not. So as we move into like a year of tent, especially next year, I hope this continues to shine like a light.
Fantastic. Shall I go for final thoughts, Matt?
Hang on, we gotta get JC first.
Oh yeah. Sorry, JC.
No, you're good. Yeah, for me, it's not just never give up, just pushing. I feel like that's what I've been going through life pretty much. Just even when you think it's not gonna happen, you know, you put your positivity and it just either make it happen or manifestation.
All right, Caroline, down to you.
I think about democratizing the creation of art and being the art and being immersed in the art. And I think that is a beautiful gift that XR and Web3 and blockchain are creating in the world. So I love to think that we are democratizing art so that everyone can participate.
Okay, and I guess the thing I'll end with again is, and we did this on purpose a little bit. You'll notice that when we talked about the arts here, we had people from theater, we have people from audio, we had people creating virtual worlds, digital art, physical art, painting. The arts is a whole lot of different things, and frankly, VR and AR is, to some, it's a really, really scary medium, frankly, and to other people, it's a brand new blank canvas and something for them to play with. And so we're excited to see that. And the one thing I want to bring up, Charlie, kind of, you threw it out there. You're saying if you want to do this, just do it. Just talk to somebody, reach out, ask. If anyone's trying to do any of this stuff with VR or AR, we have an entire community. We are obviously connected with a worldwide community of people who are doing this. If you have questions about how to do something, ask us. If we don't know, we can connect you with somebody who does. That's literally the whole point of this event. And I'll end it with that. So real quick, let's go through some housekeeping. Thank you to our presenters. These are their names and faces on the stage again. They're up here. Please give them one big round of applause. Pardon me as I try to find my mouse so I can advance slides. Oh, lovely sounds from Bella. Gotta love sound effects. Okay, so with that, again, this has been the next evolution of the arts. We do change our topic every single month. We have some more demonstrations here. Don't go away if you're here in the physical space and the virtual space. If you want to network and talk with the folks who are there, please do. Awe.live. This entire event was recorded. It will be available on Awe.live and YouTube. With that, we will once again say this is a not-for-profit. We're doing all this on donation, so please consider donating. This QR code will let you do it. The ticket site where you registered will allow you to make donations as well. We'd love to be able to keep doing this. We've been doing it now for 7 years, 6.5, almost 7 years at this point. Wow, that's weird to think about. But that said, one of the things that actually came up a little bit during some of the presentations this month was AI, which is going to be our topic for next month. We are actually tackling artificial intelligence. We're putting together a great panel for you. We've got a whole lot of people already booked for it, or we have a few people already booked for it. I shouldn't throw too much out there yet. But we'll be back to, in person, we'll be back to 1871 next month. We're talking about artificial intelligence. On December 6th, we're going to be talking about social spaces. So you've seen us talk about metaverses in the past, but we're specifically going to be focusing on the actual social interaction of spaces, both in physical spaces and in particularly virtual and metaverse spaces. We're still figuring out the venue for that. It will be a shorter program and a lot, because it's December, we're going to focus a lot more on socializing, frankly. We will be doing a virtual portion of that. We're not entirely sure how, but we're going to figure it out. With that, in January, we will not be doing a stage program. Once again, in January, we're going to be doing a social event only. Keep an eye out for when and where. It may not be on the first Wednesday of the month, since when is New Year's? Is that like January 2nd is the first Wednesday? So we might push it a little bit later into January. But with that, we do also, once again, I promised you guys that we would have the NFT up for those who want to keep it. We'll keep this slide up for the remainder of the show for anyone who wants to collect the NFT. If you are having problems collecting it, feel free to ask us. We'll help you. And once again, thank you to our presenters. Thanks again to all of our sponsors, all of our volunteers who help us run this. And we hope to see you next month. Thanks again.
Thank you, everybody.